I alluded to the Texans' big win just a minute ago, so let's get into it. A day for the rookies here in week 4. And I don't mean any rookies. I mean quarterbacks. 5 different rookie quarterbacks get the start in week 4. Only one of them wins. So let's start there with CJ Stroud and what is now a full-blown story in Houston. I think the Texans flew under the radar. Maybe they felt like a feel-good story for the first couple of weeks because they were losing. You know, they opened their season with a 25-9 loss to Baltimore, and you're like, oh, CJ Stroud looked pretty good, but the Texans look completely overmatched. That's about what I thought. Has not been the case for a couple of weeks at this point, as CJ Stroud is keeping some historic company. The number 2 overall pick out of Ohio State. 1,212 passing yards through his first 4 games after throwing for 306 and 2 touchdowns against Pittsburgh. He has now passed Andrew Luck and only trails Cam Newton for the most rookie passing yards through your first 4 games. So just in case you're unaware, that's really, really good company to keep. Andrew Luck, a 4-time Pro Bowler, one of the best quarterbacks in the league before injuries prompted him to retire early. And Cam Newton, a former NFL MVP. Yeah, I'd say CJ Stroud's doing just fine. If that wasn't good enough, no bad decisions. 6 touchdowns, still no interceptions so far this season. And it's not like we can pretend CJ Stroud is in this incredibly favorable situation. You know, we talk about Brock Purdy having all these superstars to work with. The Houston Texans should have picked number 1 in the draft last year. It should have been them navigating the choice between Bryce Young and Stroud. And only a miracle win in week 18 against Indianapolis put them into the number 2 spot. This is a bad team. Clearly, they've made some other really solid draft picks, but Stroud's doing this without much in the way of an offensive line. 1 starter from week 1 still playing for him against the likes of TJ Watt, against the likes of Alex Highsmith, and Stroud goes for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. I can't say enough about the performance that the Texans have turned in these last 2 weeks to get back to 500. D'Amico Ryans clearly has a program in mind, and I have a feeling we want to get to know the name Bobby Slowick, D'Amico Ryans' offensive coordinator down in Houston, who is clearly molding Stroud into something really impressive. So it's a feel-good story, no more. The Houston Texans, if they're not a legit contender, they are a legit fun watch. And CJ Stroud looks every bit a legit star quarterback. All right. Not as beautiful of a day for the other rookies making starts. Let's start out with Aidan O'Connell, maybe one of the more surprising ones. The 4th-round pick out of Purdue gets the last-second start for Jimmy Garoppolo, who was in concussion protocol this week. I want to take a minute to give props to the Raiders for starting O'Connell. You're in this situation. It would make sense if Josh McDaniels wanted to start Brian Hoyer, who he's familiar with from his time in New England and who is a veteran. But do the fun thing. Let's see what this young guy can do. Let's give him an opportunity to show his stuff. Brian Hoyer's had a long time to show us who he is in the NFL. Aidan O'Connell deserved a chance. I'm glad he got it. Not the most fun day of his life, probably. He gets sacked 7 times. Khalil Mack with 6 of those. Khalil Mack almost set the NFL sack record on Sunday afternoon. I have a feeling maybe it had something to do with playing the Raiders, the team that drafted him, who traded him away. Tough outing for the Raiders, but hey, Aidan O'Connell keeps him in it. It looked hopeless, down 24-10 to the Chargers in the 4th quarter. They come all the way back and they get in the red zone with a chance to tie the game. Of course they do. It's the Chargers. Chargers are never going to win a normal game in their existence, but O'Connell does throw the game-deciding interception on the goal line. Vegas just 1 of 11 on 3rd down in this game. Not a wonderful debut at all, but I thought a really promising performance. Finished with 238 yards on the day in addition to the interception. Like I said, I'm glad we got a chance to see him. I don't think it looked too big for him. The Raiders, against all odds, had a chance to win this game despite being 5.5, 6-point underdogs on the road. If Jimmy Garoppolo's out any more time, I hope we get to see him in another outing, because at the very least it makes the Raiders more interesting than they would be. Speaking of quarterbacks missing time, speaking of concussion protocol, Anthony Richardson made his return from a concussion absence in week 4 against LA. If you're not already, just carve time out of your Sunday to watch Anthony Richardson. I don't know how good the Colts are. They fall to 2-2 in this overtime loss to the LA Rams. But Anthony Richardson is worth the watch all on his own. He only completed 11 passes in this game, and yet those 11 passes went for 200 yards. He finishes with 256 all-purpose yards, 3 touchdowns on the day. He leads the Colts back. This game looked completely hopeless, and Anthony Richardson spurred the Colts to get this game to overtime. He's just a special athlete. Like, the ball looks different coming off his hand. He made a few throws in this game that I don't think it's a stretch to say there can't be more than 3 or 4 guys in the NFL who can do the stuff that Anthony Richardson does. And those guys are named Mahomes, Allen, Herbert, like the freakazoid, transformer, Optimus Prime quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson athletically is in that class. That's why you draft him in the top 5. We will see how good he can be, how much the Colts can polish him. But what we're seeing from him after just a couple of starts, because remember, he's missed time due to this injury, it's really, really impressive. And even if the Colts don't win another game, watching this guy is worth the time. So exciting. Moving on to Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick, returned to action at home against Minnesota. He missed last week with an ankle injury. Not what I would call an inspiring performance. Anytime you score 13 points and your lone touchdown of the day comes from your defense picking off Kirk Cousins, probably not great. Probably why the Panthers fall to 0-4 and just, at the risk of sounding mean, look like one of the more toothless offenses in the NFL. Our guys Brady Quinn and Alex Faust had the call on this game, and I wanted to talk to them about Bryce Young's performance and the talent around him and the situation that he's in, and what those expectations can be, and how the Panthers can try to put Young in a better situation than he's been in moving forward.
Alex Faust, Brady Quinn here with you in Charlotte. The Vikings beat the Panthers 21-13. An up-and-down day, though, for Bryce Young, trying to manage this new role that he's been thrust in. What were some of the positives and negatives today?
I think the positives were, you saw in the second half in particular, he really started to get a beat on what Minnesota was trying to do, navigating the pocket, making some plays. But at the end of the day, he's still not quite there yet, and they need to give him more help. It can't just be Adam Thielen continuing to carry things on the outside of wide receiver. There's still a trade deadline out there, so hopefully they can make some additions to this offense to take some of the pressure off his shoulders as a rookie quarterback.
All right, so the Vikings get to 1-3. Carolina 0-4 for the first time since 2010.
We'll wrap this segment up with the 5th-round pick for the Browns, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Again, the rookie out of UCLA getting the start at the last minute with Deshaun Watson unavailable. You always have really high hopes. It's exciting when a rookie gets to start his career. DTR, one of the stars of the preseason, looked phenomenal for Cleveland in August, and that's how Josh Dobbs wound up in Arizona. He played well enough that the Browns said, Josh Dobbs, we're shipping you off to Arizona. And I think it's just a stark reminder of how hard the NFL is, because as good as you can look in exhibition season against second and third string players, reality can bite you when you're going against a real deal NFL defense like Baltimore's. Not a great day for DTR. He looked like a 5th-round pick getting his first action against a salty defense. Picked off 3 times, sacked 4 times. Cleveland finishes with 3 points, which holding people to 3 points had been their specialty up until this point in the season. Not writing the book on his career at all, but just a reminder, this stuff is really, really hard. Not every NFL story gets to come right out of the storybook.